kinds of different causes, tsunamis and on and on. Because, and I accept the many people who are saying that there are going to be more and more, I accept the view of the growing number of people who are pointing to the increasing number and severity of natural disasters and catastrophes on this planet, and the idea that not only are there more of them, but they're increasing in scope and intensity, and are likely to do so for at least the next few years, and for all we know, the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We will find out. But my sense is that a lot of people are going to be dying in the coming years in very large numbers. And in fact, my dreams have suggested this to me. And at the age of 3, I was visited by an entity whom I called the Bone Lady, who gave me to know, even at that young age, that this time of great trouble, darkness, and turmoil was coming. So my whole life, I always had a sense of foreboding that this time was going to come. Now it's here. I can hardly believe that it has come. I always sensed that it was coming because of what the Bone Lady communicated to me more than 50 years ago. But at the same time, I sort of thought maybe it won't. Now indeed it appears that yes, but after all it will, and it is arriving. It has started arriving already. So it looks like the near term is going to be pretty bleak. There's an element of karma involved in who survives physically and who doesn't. There's an element of luck. There's an element of preparation. If you're standing on a railroad track and you see a huge freight train bearing down on you at 60 miles per hour, do you stand there on the railroad track and mutter to yourself, "Que sera, whatever will be," and wait to be plastered by the locomotive? Or do you very carefully step off of the railroad track in time and watch the freight train thunder past and live to see another day? You see, there are some people who say, "Oh well, there's going to be a lot of people dying, and I guess I will too." There are other people who say, "Well, wait a minute, hard times are coming. Why don't I make some preparations and maximize my chances of surviving and possibly even flourishing, while all around me other people are losing their heads, maybe literally, because they did nothing to prepare or to help themselves." There's an old saying, God helps those who help themselves.
Yes, there is. Richard, and one of the many causes is manifesting as we speak. A preliminary report from leading scientists for the International Program on the State of the Ocean, IPSO, recently warned of a mass extinction from the current rate of marine distress. Cliff sees the possibility of linguistics showing 68% of the world's oceans dying due to various factors. With the elite's underground bases and doomsday seed vaults, and with your recent article on your blog titled "The Final Meter Measures 0.999, do you think it's pretty much too late to turn this around? Are we at the stage where the ecology of the Earth is going to crash and it's no longer a case of trying to fix the issues, but to shun the powers that were and prepare and save family, loved ones, and whoever you can?
Yeah. Yes, it's already very late. It's so late that it's not a question of whether the ecology is going to crash. The ecology is already crashing, and it is crashing very hard. We are already well into a major extinction event, species extinction event on this planet. So our agenda now, our task now will have to be on a global basis as a race, as a human species, to save what we can of what remains. That said, we're also going to have to do a tremendous amount of ecological remediation going forward from here. So yes, my answer is, in the short term, yes, there is a huge ecological crash, and it's already underway. Many life forms are dying already and in large numbers. The human species is not necessarily immune to that because we are also part of the ecological chain on this planet. So your task then becomes, if you're concerned about yourself and your family, to make sure that you and your loved ones are not part of the extinction event. So in the short term, you will probably have to be preoccupied with your personal and family survival and well-being, because we're going to go through some really hard times, much of which, not all of which, but much of which we have unnecessarily and unthinkingly brought upon ourselves and on many of the other life forms that share this planet with us.
Okay, thank you, Richard. We're speaking with Richard Sauder. Please support him by purchasing his great books from eventhorizon.chronicle.blogspot.com. Once again, that's eventhorizon.chronicle.blogspot.com. What we'll do now is we'll move into the category of underground bases, and our next set of questions is from Jay Durand.
Richard, in many previous interviews, including the Veritas Show and Coast to Coast, you concluded that the underground bases from your research could have been built for a number of reasons. Are you familiar with the work of Maurice Cottrell and Patrick Gerrel on an 11,500-year solar mega sunspot cycle? Has your research shown the possible cause of the elite's rush to build underground bases be due to their fear of a series of massive solar flares and CMEs hitting the Earth?
Yeah, I do think that in the case of at least some of these facilities, that could be a reason. My research indicates that the so-called ruling elites and the so-called powers that be are aware at their innermost, highest levels of the reality of periodic cataclysm on this planet and in the solar system, and so at least part of what they have built is for eventualities like that. But it's important to understand that many of these underground bases and also undersea bases are multi-purpose. Some of the purposes are publicly known and well discussed, and have been well discussed over the years by me and others, of course, too. Some of them are so secretive that I don't think that we can even guess or speculate very intelligently about what's going on inside them. I suspect that probably there are events going on that are so bizarre that we don't even have the vocabulary and mental framework to talk about or think about what is happening in them, because it's so far divorced from our everyday lives in reality. Now, I would speculate that based on the anecdotal evidence that's available, there do seem to be joint terrestrial and extraterrestrial facilities, both underground and undersea, and also bizarre science fiction-like genetic engineering and cloning projects and programs that are going on underground. And beyond that, we're really getting into strange territory. I would speculate further that probably there are some hyperdimensional or transdimensional or interdimensional aspects to some of these undersea and underground facilities as well. Beyond that, I mean, we're so deep into speculation and at the deepest levels, and I mean that both figuratively and literally, at the deepest levels, the secrecy and security around these underground and undersea bases is so compartmentalized that it's very, very difficult to know what's going on unless you are part of those hermetically sealed, compartmentalized programs. And if you are, then you absolutely cannot and do not talk about them. So I'm doing the best I can, looking from the outside in with my nose pressed up against Alice's looking glass.
What is a follow-up question? What is your interpretation of the Fukushima incident? How bad is it? Also, there is a developing nuclear crisis with the nuclear plant in Missouri, which is close to flooding. What is your take on Fukushima and in general with Cliff High linking radiation fallout to his dire ill winds forecast? And with the Northern Hemisphere containing the majority of nuclear power plants, how concerned are you with global nuclear meltdowns, and was this one of your reasons for moving to Ecuador?
Well, I'll start first. No, with Ecuador, it wasn't one of my reasons for moving to Ecuador, but I have to say that I'm glad I'm here now because, yes, the situation at Fukushima is dire. And let me say that in uppercase letters, it is dire in all capital letters, and it will not be going away anytime soon. Yes, I do think that these problems with the nuclear power plants will be ongoing, not only in Japan, but the danger of a Fukushima-style nuclear disaster with the nuclear power plants in Nebraska along the flooding Missouri River is very real. I do not rule out whatsoever that a similar scenario could play out in North America, and even conceivably far worse than what we see in Japan, because there are many more nuclear reactors in North America than in Japan, and there are a good many very old nuclear reactors in poor repair that are very susceptible to catastrophic failure if their emergency systems and backup systems do not function as they're designed to, for whatever reason. And so I agree, or I am inclined to think, rather, that there could well be merit in Cliff High's talking about the ill winds and connecting them to this ongoing radioactive catastrophe in Japan, and the possibility that the same thing could happen in the United States most any day. I mean, maybe even later tonight, for all that we know. So I'm very concerned. How concerned am I? Very. I intend to remain in South America. I do believe the Southern Hemisphere will be safer. You mentioned that there are far fewer nuclear reactors in the Southern Hemisphere. That's true. Something like 95% of them are in the Northern Hemisphere, and also the vast majority of nuclear weapons are in the Northern Hemisphere. So in the event of an all-out nuclear war, or even limited nuclear war, all else being equal, it is likely that most of that war would be waged in the Northern Hemisphere, and the same goes for nuclear reactors. Since there are far fewer nuclear reactors in the Southern Hemisphere, as nuclear reactors begin to catastrophically fail, and my perception is that there may be more nuclear reactor failures in the coming days, weeks, and months in the Northern Hemisphere, then the lion's share, the preponderance of the nuclear fallout from that will be in the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm very concerned. I have to say that I came to South America on a vision quest. I consider that it is ongoing to this day. I continue to get new insights, to have new revealing dreams, continue to partake of ayahuasca in ayahuasca ceremonies from time to time. One of the first things that I noticed when I came was, after I'd been here about a couple of weeks and had drunk ayahuasca a time or two, the first shaman with whom I did ayahuasca ceremonies came to me